Okay, let's try this again, because I didn't realize I had left a window open on my browser, which was going to give me a really, really loud commercial for Fury. The new Brad Pitt picture, apparently coming out this month in theaters near you. No clue what my channel has to do with Fury. I really wish I understood the algorithm at which they just sort of... Because it seems like they're random with the ads, but like, I don't know, it's just very odd. Like me and that movie have I've nothing for that movie, nothing for that picture. So, anyway, okay, so back to where we had left off. We had just finished Chapter 1, our illustrious tutorial slash introductory chapter. We are now on Chapter 2, where we are checking out the medical facility, if I'm not mistaken, on the Ishimura. We've been tasked by our two named but not important enough to worry about characters. The scientist, I assume she hasn't done much science yet, and then the security detail dude, that we need to go to this medical facility to locate the dead body of a captain, or he's like a pilot. I guess he's like the captain of the ship, I think. Captain of the Ishimura. Specifically to get his log, as it were. And no, not his literal Lincoln log or anything like that. Nothing silly. I'm assuming the idea is it's like a PDA, or, you know, like an information little deposit. Something that allows us to gain access to the controls on the Ishimura as far as, you know, piloting it and what have you. I don't even... You know, like, it's, again, you know, we're not going to focus too much more on the narrative at this point, because there's really not much else to say. I mean, you've got basic cookie cutter BS, go do this, go do that. Okay, great, now go back here, whatever. So we'll just leave it at that. Just keep in mind, we will be momentarily interrupted throughout the gameplay here, more than likely by, well, if not internet cutting out on me, then by consistent heads-up displays of characters we barely care about telling us what to do and how to do it. Oh boy. Now here's a sort of, I don't even know if I'd consider it interesting. It's just more of like a, I guess, conscious design decision. Kind of gives you a sort of reward, I guess, for exploring areas and such. Is this thought on schematics. Basically the idea is that you find schematics throughout the Ishimura, bring them back to a shop. It'll automatically unlock the ability to purchase usually new weaponry. In this case, the Hydrazine Industrial Torch, or as it's more commonly referred to, flamethrower. Can't even afford it. Probably not going to buy it. Other save file, I actually have it, and it doesn't seem to do shit except eat up a lot of expensive ammo and generally just sort of piss off the monsters, not really kill them.
Are you there? We were attacked. Kendra's gone.
Of course
One
I'm
minute she
here.
was there, and I can't believe I lost her. We can still do this. Get me the captain's rig codes and we'll find Nicole. Looks like the crew barricaded
Her name is
the door to
Nicole.
the emergency
Okay.
ring.
I was
We
right.
have to blow through it to get to the morgue. Get some thermite from medical storage and a shock pad from zero-G therapy. Should be down the corridor. Communication is useless in all this static.
Okay, so I've got to get materials to make a thermite bomb so that I might... So I assume that I might cut through this, or, you know... It's... I don't even know what to say to that. Like, there's really no excuse for it. It's strictly speaking another... Please go get these two things so that you can then attach them to this one thing, and then you'll be able to move forward. I mean, it's as gamey as it gets, I guess, but it's like... Not even... You know? Not even trying to hide that, right? Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I have to go this way, because if I remember correctly, there was a locked door down that hallway. Okay. Now comes the part. This is actually one time I was happy this little heads-up display came up, because I would not have actually guessed that A, there was a secondary firing mode, and B, how to even begin to use it. But you may have seen me doing it. Earlier. But basically, if you hit the right bumper while you've got your weapon out, it'll usually have a secondary effect. In this case, on the plasma cutter, all it does is it changes the plane on which the plasma cutter is cutting. So you've got your horizontal plane here and your vertical plane there. Usually just keep it on horizontal, typically. Kind of reminds me of a crossbow, which is kind of neat. Some plenty dead bodies here. Always like how that looks, actually. It looks so damn... Reminds me of something right out of Doom 3 or something, right? Of course, it's not Doom 3, so... No. Might have to do a Doom 3 run at some point. Hi there! Hello, new viewer. Hello, hello. But, yeah, playing Dead Space, as it were.
Hazardous anomaly detected. Quarantine activated.
Yeah. Always kind of like this. Kind of like the idea behind this. Enemies come into a room, it gets quarantined. And it kind of creates sort of an arena for you to play around in, I guess. Nothing wrong with that, per se. It's a good... Oh, he's still alive. Good excuse to kind of lock down a room and make it to where you have to, you know, engage with the enemies. Plus, again, there's that strobe light stuff, which is always neat. Again, I really love the way this game looks. Oh, hi, Brandon. I figured it was you. I can hear... Well... I can still hear one moving around, making all sorts of racket, but I don't see him. Oh. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, that's right. I think he's just downstairs. Ooh. Getting a lot of really neat, like, visual elements in this game. You know, it's just really weird. Like, you can tell where the money went in many respects. Oh, shit. Knocked his head clean off. Woo. And there we go. Now we lose the moody lighting, but at least now we can sort of see clearly. Here we go. Little interesting tidbits. Lydia, if I don't make it back, take care of the kids for me. I love you, Stephen. We've got a note. Something about blood transfusion. It's just like a suggestion card, I guess. We need more people here. This one. Let's see if I can get this damn buzzsaw out of the way. Hold on. There we go. Let's see. If you are here and you are in love, know that I was here. Or in love. Wait. If you are here and you are in love, know that I was here. Come back at night and you will see love was always there. Okay. Odd little bit of minutia, I suppose. Let me get my tell me where to go button going. Okay, so I know not to go there yet. I want to explore and just kind of have a look. I see I'm using that more often in a lot of modern first and third person shooters here lately. You see it more often, or at least I'm using it more often. For the wrong purpose is the go here button, you know. Tells me where I need to go and I'm like, okay, well I'll definitely not go there yet because I'd rather explore and, you know, actually play the game and not just sort of use the large spacious environments as a delivery service for a plot I don't care about. Let's see. So we're not going through that door. We're gonna keep digging around here. It's actually kind of a cool little area. I mean, it's, you know, it's sort of tense because, you know, it's medical. It's, you know, supposed to be a healthy, sterile environment. And it's clearly anything but right now. You can hear, you know, you can still hear that door.
What in God's name is going on down there?
I think that's precisely the point, Doctor.
God's work.
I'm not so sure of that. We have to assume that the colony's problems are somehow connected to the marker.
You can assume all you want to. I do not. The marker is glorious and divine. You know that.
God moves in mysterious ways.
Anyway, we'll have it on board tomorrow. You can analyze it all you want to. What are you so worried about?
Worried? Captain, people are dying down there, killing each other. Is this madness the transformation unitology teaches us?
Doctor.
What?
Terrence. There will always be risk when the stakes are high. And here, they're enormous. It could change everything.
And that's what worries me.
Alright, so, plot and stuff. So, yeah, so... Yeah, it just occurred to me, there's a room behind this... Huh. I wonder. This seems oddly... Oh, you know what? Bet I know what to do. Aha! Oh, I didn't even notice that in my first run through of this area in my other save file. I never even thought about that. That's clever. It's a clever thought, you know. Let's use those. The game will give me plenty of those. What else? Anything worth a damn in here, really? Okay. Again, more of this sort of, you know, find the narrative BS that you see in most modern games. I fail to understand how anybody ever thought that was a... I mean, like, due to limitations, like, before, like, we're talking, like, pre-2004, I could kind of understand it, but, like, now, it's... I don't know. I do not understand why it's a crutch that continuously gets, utilized over and over again.
Video feed from the colony, and what I saw was glorious, breathtaking. Miners undergoing a transformation into something extraordinary. I must know more. Even as the believer within me wants to become one of them, the scientist needs to uncover their secrets. I need to study one of these necromorphs, as Kyne so clinically puts it. I need to witness this infection firsthand. Perhaps that patient from the colony.
You know, it's just, I don't know, that's like a major pet peeve for me here lately. I find it's just, I don't know, it's just not very effective. It's like, because again, now it begs even more of a question. If you're going to give me the major narrative beats in the form of optional audio logs and holodeck cues and crap like that, what on earth was the point of the other two characters that I'm constantly getting bitched at about? Like, I don't quite understand that. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So I've got two basically nameless, uninteresting characters that are telling me what to do. In the meantime, the stuff I'm actually interested in, and that you would think, creatively speaking, the writers would be more interested in portraying for the player, is optional stuff based around audio logs and crap that I have to actually actively hunt for. And it's such a lazy way of doing that. Look, some kind of anatomical nitbit there. Again, it really does sound like I hate this game. I don't hate this game. I just hate specific design decisions in it that just really irk me. Guy kind of looks like Cliffy Bazinski, actually. That's really weird. Kind of an odd thing. Okay. Okay. So I think I alluded to this earlier, and this is actually one of the more interesting enemy designs in the games. Now, mind you, most of them are pretty rote. I mean, they're basically all the basic same concept. You know, you've got the, the two-legged standard enemy you'll see often. You have the crawling dude with the long tail. Later on, we're going to see a monster that respawns dead body or reanimates dead corpses into new monsters, which is kind of neat, but it's kind of, again, pretty standard. You've seen stuff like this in games as old as Doom, technically. I mean, Gauntlet, for God's sake, too, would fall into that category. And then you got like your big heavy character, etc., so on and so forth. But then you have this thing coming up. Now, from just a gameplay standpoint, it's fairly. It's not like it's doing anything particularly amazing. Basically, it's just your standard small, fast-moving, you know, projectile-based enemy, right? I mean, that's pretty standard. I mean, you see that quite a bit in quite a few different video games. But here's the thing about them. It's what's being implied by the design. Now, again, this is. Some people would probably argue if this is even purposeful, but I believe it is. You'll notice probably, while I'm not talking, you'll hear background noises that sound vaguely like children maybe laughing or cooing or things of that nature. You'll notice the very obvious embryos and birth imagery right in here. These are obviously being created or they were being harvested somehow. And then of course you look at the enemy itself, it's obviously very diminutive in size. It's implied that it's a child, possibly not a fully developed child. And that's kind of what makes this one very odd to me. Oddly disgusting in a way, and oddly disturbing for sort of a AAA title to actually deal with anything revolving or even remarking on the idea of child-based violence. I mean, this is pretty damn specific. So, kudos to Redwood. Not necessarily because I'm a freak for violence against children, mind you, but it's just that's sort of like one of those weird. Again, and I believe I mentioned this before, but that's really one of those odd taboos that you don't ever like see in not just video games, but in like any media. You know, any sort of violent content towards children. That's like a no-no. So to see this. You can even hear the vaguely nursery rhyme sounding stuff in the backseat. That's like just, that's weird, you know? Like this makes you, it leaves you with questions, if anything. That's the main thing. Good aesthetic design like that, especially in a game, it imparts ideas of a narrative that leaves you with questions that hopefully are maybe answered. Preferably not in the form of an audio log or, you know, email, but still, the fact of the matter is it leaves me upset that I would rather like to know what on earth is going on here. That's effective stage developed storytelling. Thank you Redwood. You guys got this sometimes, apparently. Stuff like that makes me happy. So, okay, so here we go. We're going up this elevator here, obviously. I don't think I need to narrate everything I do anyway. Got another couple of these guys making all sorts of horrible noise. Now we talked about the obvious design elements of these particular enemies, at least from a sort of implied narrative or storytelling sense. But just judging by the actual design of them too, though, they're actually like the actual physical look and feel of them. They're actually pretty damned interesting. I mean, they're fast-moving. They have projectile-based attacks. There's really, at this point, from what I've played, I haven't encountered anything that's really quite like that. Plus, they are not encumbered by the gravity or by the physics of a wall. They can climb, run, and move along walls, surfaces, ceilings, etc. Makes them pretty damn formidable in their own right. And really, when you only have one or two dealing with that, that's not too big a deal. But when you have more than that, when you have like 4 or 5 of them, then it starts to become a bit hairy. Let's see. It's Cliff Bleszinski again. I swear to God, that is so strange. It really does look like Cliff Bleszinski. Cliff Bleszinski, by the way, if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about or who I'm talking about, he was a former lead director and creative designer at Epic Games. He was actually one of the main guys behind Unreal Tournament, Unreal, etc., that sort of thing. Also, he was the lead. I want to say he was either the creative director or the actual full-on director of Jazz Jackrabbit, if I'm not mistaken. Way back, I think 1993. I think I would have been 3 years old at the time, if I'm thinking correctly. Anyway, nice guy from what I understand. Can kind of be a dickhole sometimes, but he means well, and he's actually a pretty upstanding fella.
Use the shock pad to ignite it. Hope I can hold this position. I can hear something big moving out there.
If anything, actually, just to cover my ass, Cliff Blazinski's actually a pretty cool guy. I don't agree with everything he says, mind you. Especially in terms of some ways he views this industry, but generally speaking, again, he means well. Alright, so we're going to the main lab now, where basically the same shit that's been happening is going to happen again. Because we've actually gone in a circle, if anybody hadn't noticed. So, here we are with the clever backtracking. Now, in the first chapter, there was a lot of unnecessary, like, stupid backtracking. The type that, like, doesn't really do well, right? You know you're walking in a circle, you know you're about to turn around and go right back where you came from, and you know there's not going to be much of a good reason behind it other than, well, because. Now, in this case, pretty good backtracking. We made a technical circle again, but we encountered the arena room here, where we got locked in the room and had to kill all the enemies before we could proceed. Then we got a little bit of exploratory stuff going on here with little details and minutia to look at, plus a couple of audio logs and optional content to find. Next, we had a new enemy encounter with a new enemy type, which was interesting. Plus, we had the implied narrative storytelling involving the unfinished embryonic children. And then, of course, now we end up back here, kind of in a natural loop, as it were. If anything, it makes it clean and simple and very clear that, hey, yeah, we went in the circle, but wasn't that interesting? Wasn't that fun? You got to see some cool stuff and do some cool stuff, and generally speaking, it wasn't that bad. Now, I heard a noise. There he is. Let's go ahead and do this real quick. Show this off. Now, that's what I was referring to before. That's the trick with the slowing the enemy down. Pretty neat once you get a hang of it. A little off-putting, though, at how effective it actually is. I mean, again, we're dealing with a game that's supposed to be primarily sold as a horror title, and yet we have options like being able to cut things in half and, oh hey, by the way, I can totally slow you down Super Smash Brothers style in real time. We have options like that that kind of remove any sort of real focus on tension. I mean, it's still there, mind you. There's some tense elements here. But, I mean, it's nothing really that, you know, it's nothing really that keen for the player. I mean, it's nothing that's really like sticks out. It's just like, oh my god, that was so intense, right? It's more like, oh god, I kind of figured I'd get through that. So, here we go. We're gonna go to this shop real quick. We're gonna do some minor inventory management. I have this to sell, and yeah, I guess that's it, really. Oh boy. That was exciting. So now I'm going through this door. This leads to the Imaging Diagnostics Wing. Right on. Huh. That's definitely another thing I can really praise this game for is excessively good audio design. Now, I see this quite often in video games a lot. Primarily, I know there are lots of films. Well, not a lot of films. There are several films you could point to, both current and from the past, that actually utilize this aspect of design really well too. But audio design, you may have noticed throughout playing Dead Space so far, there's not a lot of quiet parts. There's usually always some sort of noise, whether it be the, you know, sound of ventilation ducts, fans moving, rotating, etc. The sound of creatures scurrying about in ventilation shafts, or the sound of lights moving. There's even that slight buzz or dim flicker that kind of makes that weird noise that, you know, kind of fluorescent light bulbs are known for. Add to that the fact that you also have the sound design or the sound mix of the composed audio for the game, which in many ways is actually kind of hard to delineate from just actual sound effects. Sound effects and audio are kind of merging in this game. Another sort of Ridley Scott-esque, Alien-esque aspect. You see that, well, you see and hear that quite a bit throughout the 79 picture. So, gotta say, it's really good. And in this particular instance, it is actually really well done. You enter this hallway, you hear this sort of hollow thudding. Walking down the way, you see a shadow moving. The closer you get, you start to get a better idea of what's going on. And you have the very pitiful looking remains of a unfortunate leftover of the Ishimura crew, as it were. Not looking so hot at all. Yeah, this actually, if anything, this actually has sort of like a Clive Barker's Hellraiser kind of look to it. Again, probably another point of reference for the developers, at least as far as sort of the gorier aspects. It's funny, actually, because this thing, while Alien tends to be the primary, like, obvious influence in terms of the design, in terms of the look, aesthetics-wise, of this game, you could actually argue that when it comes to other aspects, things like the dead Ishimura crew. I mean, that's literally like I could point to a specific scene in Hellraiser that is very much this sort of like skinned carcass, looking very, 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 very gross. Typical Clive Barker, pseudo-sexualized, very skin-heavy horror imagery. But then at the same time, too, the Necromorphs. The Necromorphs are very interesting because they tend to... They're a little more abstract in their design than maybe what they're pulling from, but I do tend to see quite a bit of John Carpenter's The Thing in them, at least from a aesthetic perspective. I mean, they're humanoid-esque. You can clearly tell that they come from formerly organic humanoid tissue. They've morphed, though, mutated, turned into weird forms that are kind of a mix of human and maybe a bit of spider or insect. In some of the cases, almost like large, mammalian beasts, maybe. Kind of neat thing. It's initially, basically what I'm saying, well, not initially, but essentially what I'm saying is this game's kind of a hodgepodge of different visual motifs and visual God, that was terribly distracting. Thanks, Snow. I know you doesn't say it right there. Again, I have half a mind to check the options menu to see if there's any way to turn those off. It just seems so damn redundant. It wouldn't be half as bad if it wasn't so damn redundant. It's like, here's something you've done 4 times now. Let's remind you again how to use it. I see that is kind of a neater aspect of the game, admittedly. Something you don't, well, you see it, but then you don't see it a lot. You don't see it as much as you would think you would, and that's the utilization when the enemies utilize the ventilation shafts whilst during an enemy encounter. It happens occasionally, again, not as much as it should, but it is actually really quite something when it happens. To sort of see the enemy do stuff, it goes up to a wall, clearly very quickly disappears. You're like, oh shit, where is it going? Sure enough, boom, now it's behind you, or it's above you. It's somewhere where you didn't think it was going to show up. Very, very cool concept that is just not utilized enough, I think. At least not in the early chapters of the game. So that's kind of a double-edged, kind of a backhanded compliment, I guess. Well, that's interesting. Sort of another one of those, I guess, sort of jump scare type things, yeah. Oh, look, something you didn't expect to be there. Oh, look, it's making noises and doing something gross. Yeah, kind of a cheap way to do that, I guess. By extension, that is too, actually. Raise your hand if you didn't see that one coming. Actually, I want to do this real quick. So yeah, we have a little bit more minutia here, you know, mostly in the form of like graffiti. There's quite a bit of graffiti in this game. You know, survivor stuff. It's kind of an old-fashioned trope. I mean, you see it as far back as, you know, is it Dawn of the Dead? I think the original Romero film from 1970. Is it 5 or 6? I forget. I don't think it was an 80s picture, anyways. Sure doesn't look like it. I mean, it looks like it's maybe like 1980. I'd have to look at the dates, but yeah. I mean, it's similar to that. I mean, you see that quite a bit in zombie fiction and a lot of horror fiction. You'll see, you know, you'll see sort of like, oh, the survivors are trying to get messages out to people. They're, you know, oh, they're leaving goodbye notes for loved ones. Kind of a cliched thing nowadays. I mean, it's like, you know, I don't really even get much of it, because I mean, again, I don't have any emotional attachment to basically anyone in this game at this point. I mean, Isaac, our main character, to a certain degree, because I am in fact controlling him. I'm playing as him, but I mean, you know, stuff like that never really did much for me. It's neat, it's kind of spooky, but in a way, but it's not really. That is kind of creepy when you see that. Because I made mention before that these are the guys who crawl. But the thing is that once, if you cut off their tail, suddenly, and this I think is actually sort of a brilliant little bit of detail. Since he loses the tail, which is keeping him weighed down on the back, as soon as he loses it, he is now able to actually run on his 2 front arms, as it were. So it's a neat little detail. Stuff like that, you know. I appreciate little things like that. Everybody should. It implies effort on the part of the design team, and that's always good. You know, they may not have been perfect at everything they did for this game, but little things again like that, they tend to shine with that in this instance. Sorry, so now we're going to carefully move that over. Always remember to melee attack that. Don't want to waste the ammo, even though the game's going to give you 400 more rounds where that came from. Alright. So now comes a really, really neat part of Dead Space. Probably one of the more unique aspects of it anyway. There are points where you are going to be stepping basically outside into space. You're going to be stuck in the vacuum areas, these sort of no gravity, you know, areas where the ship's been damaged and where, you know, you have to get from one side to the other. They actually utilize this in a couple of different clever ways, which is always appreciated. Plus, it's really neat because it's one of the few times the game is just really quiet. Case in point. See, all you can hear is Isaac's breathing, his heartbeat, and of course the timer on the back of Isaac Clarke's suit. Another clever use of the sort of suit-based heads-up display that you see throughout the game. It is actually really, a lot of people could say it's sort of cheesy, it's kind of a one-note trick, etc. But I really think it's kind of a neat thing that's, in a way, kind of separates Dead Space from maybe other competitors in the same genre. I mean, it's not often you see something like that handled in the way it's handled. Plus, there's nothing really more terrifying in many respects in a game like this than damn near pure silence in an environment where you're going to lose oxygen if you're not quick enough. Kind of a cool thought, anyway. On that note, here comes the second really cool and basically unique concept for Dead Space.
Your ammo counter will flash red if you can't jump to a surface.
So you may notice now, well, the damn little HUD kind of gave it away. But we are now in 0G. We are now moving in zero gravity environment. Now, I'm assuming that Isaac's boots actually have magnets or something in them. That's why he's not just immediately in free float, as it were. But I never get that. I spent 20 minutes my first run of this area trying to see if I could just Michael Jordan that thing halfway across the court. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So what I ended up having to do was this. Kind of a neat trick. Again, it is sort of gimmicky. It's not, you know, it's not the most impressive thing to have ever happened in a video game by any stretch, but it's still pretty neat for what it is. And what it is just a really good way to remind people, hey, remember, you're in space, right? It's weird though, there's 2 of these loose ones in here, and I don't know where that second loose one would go. I don't see much evidence of it going anywhere, really, but... Weird. Actually, there's 2 more of it. Huh. I have no idea what the deal is with that. Almost seems like that's a hint. Like, maybe I should explore, but... I imagine it will occur to me if there is anything particularly important about it. Okay.
Great. You got a shock pad. Combine that with the thermite at the barricade to destroy it. Shit. I can hear more coming. Moving through the vents. Stay safe, Isaac.
Okay. So, now we've finished our second major fetch quest.
Entering zero gravity.
Oh no, now we've got monsters. Well, we did anyway. Now, I can happily say that. Now, I will say about the shooting mechanics. I know I kind of earlier had obviously a few issues, as it were, with the way weapons are handled in this game, specifically from the perspective that, frankly, the game doesn't really push you to use anything but the plasma cutter, and the other stuff, neat as it may seem, probably is nowhere as effective as said plasma cutter. But there is one thing they do very well with the weapons, at least in terms of the plasma cutter, and to some degree the flamethrower, though it's not quite as effective as you would think it would be. And that's the satisfaction of properly shooting enemies. Now, this is always fun. Out here kind of gives it a better perspective. I just love the way it sounds when you're firing a gun. In this game, anyways. I like the way weaponry sounds. Very punchy, very thick, heavy bass hits. You know, whether you're in the vacuum areas or not. I mean, it's a nice thought to know that the weaponry really does have. It feels like you're using very dangerous stuff. Industrial grade stuff that probably should not be used in the context in which it's being used. I don't believe the plasma cutter, for instance, is designed primarily to cut people's limbs off, but the fact that it's being used that way, in accordance with its, again, its role as a tool of industry, not of engineering, not of weaponry per se, it gives it a sort of very, I don't know, not disturbing. It doesn't disturb me. It's just more of a, it just gives it a lot more weight, I guess. It gives it a certain kind of weight. I hear more noises. Okay, well. You also notice I'm a terrible shot sometimes. I liken it to the fact that, frankly, the game's not punishing me for being a terrible shot, so why not? I promise I'll try to get a little better as I go on. but I can't promise that I'll get any better as I go on. So here we go. I don't remember where to go. No, I kind of remembered where to go anyway. But yeah, we're going to go drop this thermite bomb that I now have back at that barricaded area. Because, well, you know, new enemies. Just gonna run after that one. Honestly, those little guys are the worst ammo sinks in this game by far. They are all killed by direct one-shots. You will run out of a considerable amount of ammo if you sit around just shooting them like I just did. I figure, what the hell? Again, game doesn't really penalize you on the on the matter of ammo, but still, it is a little bit tedious to sit there and do that. Matter of fact, I'm going to sell some of my med kits and that because I don't use stasis enough to really even bother with a standalone item that is designed to, you know, refill it. And then we're gonna buy some plasma energy. We do need that. And then go ahead and buy a power node, and then go ahead and there we go. Perfect. Ended it on an even 1,000. Okay, so yeah, so I went ahead and basically I bought another power node because I'm going to be upgrading. I think I'm going to try to upgrade the power cutter, the plasma cutter. That'll probably be my next big thing. The suit I can kind of I'm not that worried about it. Plus the suit itself, you do get upgrades on that as you go through the game, so upgrading every last bit of the extra air and health on it, while obviously useful in its own ways, really doesn't present itself as like something I need to really worry about right this second. Instead I'm going to focus solely really on the weaponry. As a matter of fact, well, I think I've got one coming up right here. So okay, here we go. I don't know, that's kind of really cheesy. All that backtracking, all that grabbing, all that questing.
Should be clear from there to the morgue.
And
the codes are on the captain's body.
And all that really amounted to is just a small hole being created. A walkable hole, I might add. Now yes, back to the main task at hand, of course.
This is Senior Medical Officer Nicole Brennan transmitting ship-wide. We need more help. We don't have the resources to deal with this many cases. Nobody would tell us what's happening. These wounds, we are not equipped to deal with this. Get him to the table. Hold him. Nurse, you hold him down. And record him.
Okay, so
That was Nicole, right? I can't tell from here when that log was made. I'm sure she's around here somewhere.
that's kind of a big hint, by the way, I'm pretty sure. My first run through with that very obvious line of dialogue I'm pretty sure spoiled the entire story of this game, at least in terms of the fate of Nicole. I won't go any further than that, though, in case anybody else doesn't catch that. On that note, though, speaking of Nicole, I will say that once again we have yet another useless characterization of her. We're really still not given any reason why Isaac really cares about her. She just came off as like a doctorish sort, obviously working in the medical center and obviously under duress, but that's about it. I still have no idea who this woman is, or why I should honestly care about Isaac's plight to try and save her. Frankly, you could argue I'm being awfully nitpicky and hard to please on that note, but I don't really think it's that bad to ask for a decent characterization, whether it be of male or female at this point. Just actual, a character, not not a MacGuffin or a framing device. Hi. Oh, it didn't die. Now it did. Nothing better than shooting mutated babies. Lord. I don't know, it's just it's very odd. It's like something like this gets, you know, you get a lot of issue that some pundits and some people will have with video games as a medium. They'll say, well, you know, it's violent, it's a murder simulator, it's celebrating crime. You know, you look at any Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty, anything that comes out and happens to be financially well off or successful, and you'll have pundits screaming out how, you know, it's ruining values and it's doing this and it's doing that. You'll hear all about that. You'll hear all about the standard stuff: shooting unarmed civilians, committing copious amounts of crime, paying prostitutes for services, then running them over. You'll hear all about that, but Dead Space, I remember when it came out, I don't remember ever hearing one person talk about the fact that you're basically, as Isaac Clarke, an engineer, are like shooting a bunch of mutated fetuses in an effort to, I guess, sort of retroactively abort said alien infected fetuses. Like, I mean, like, to me that's already, like, that's straddling so many different horrible questions to be asking yourself about what you're doing in game. And yet, like, that's like, no, it's okay, they're aliens though, right? Well, they didn't start as aliens, is my point, you know. But anyway, it's just sort of the silly double standard, I guess. And it is an exceptionally silly double standard, I might add. It just it simply makes no sense. How one thing is perfectly okay in regards to shooting a bunch of mutated children, but definitely do not run a woman over with a car. Like, that's... Because you can say the aspects of the violent content are different. I mean, one is entirely fictional. The other one could technically take place in real life, but yeah. Alright, so here we go. I had a feeling he was back there. See, I will say this too. Now, as much as I like the idea of the limb removal stuff, and I think it is it's a pretty novel approach, I suppose, for what it is. However, I almost feel like it's kind of cheapened by the fact that it's really limited. And what I mean by that is it's ostensibly head, arms, legs, that's it. And depending on the monstrosity you're fighting, you could actually have less to work with than that even. Or you may, you know, replace one with, say, 3 tentacles or a tail. But like in the case of the weird fetus monstrosities, these guys right here, here's a clearer look at the face. Looks like something right out of They Live, or It Lives, or is it not They Live? It's Alive, that's the movie. The one with the mutated evil baby. Looks something right out of that. My issue on this note, frankly, comes from the fact that it seems almost limited in what the scope could have been. And what I mean by that is that I can shoot this little guy right here on what is clearly his forearm, or his front arm, does nothing. I shoot his face, does nothing. Only the tentacles on him are removable, so when we say limb removal, we should probably put a little asterisk by that and maybe make a note of the fact that while it's interesting and while you can in fact do this, it is limited by design of the enemy inherent. Also, I don't remember actually opening this door in my other save file, so that's pretty cool. Look at all this cool shit I got. Of course, it's stuff I'm not really going to use, honestly. I highly doubt it. Probably ammo for a pulse rifle that I do not currently have, and I have no plans to use, as I have attempted to, and it's just not that great. There we go, that's kind of neat.
Hello? Can anybody hear me? My name is Eileen Fisk. I just woke up in here and everybody was gone. I don't know what's happening.
I don't know.
Did they all leave? I'm going to try and
I don't
find
know.
someone. If you can hear this, please come for me. I can hear scratching in the wall. Hello? Who's there? Are you a doctor? Why is everyone... Wait, I know you. You're Harris, the prisoner from the colony. You killed that nurse. Help! Somebody help me! Please! Please!
Okay, so, I don't know, like, just does nothing for me. I have no clue who she is. I don't really care about her plight. You talk about a mixed message. It's like, okay, my main character cares about one person on the ship. We clearly see everybody else is dead. And since they're all dead, we'll never establish them as full characters, so why should I care about them anyway? It's not really a sociopathic mindset to have at this point. But then I get these dumb audio logs, which are like, oh my god, I'm so scared, and oh man, there's so much horrible shit happening, and God, I hope Cindy's okay, and God, I miss my family, and I mean, nobody cares. I don't care. Haven't cared. How? Just silly. Just a silly thing. Ooh, look, audio logs, man. Ooh, look, stuff that has no bearing on anything, and we're gonna make it. Of course, the obvious notion is, well, they're optional, but like, when should story be optional? I mean, if we're gonna have narrative, why on earth make it optional? It just makes no sense. At least in the context of a game like this. I mean, if it were like Dark Souls, that's arguably a bit different, but I mean, in this case, like, come on, guys. Okay, and they're still not really explaining any of that either. I mean, clearly she's gone crazy because, is it because of the necromorphs infecting her? Is it because she's just that, like, unable to deal with all this violence, you know? I don't know. It's an odd bit of... kind of an odd bit of number of questions to be asking here. I mean, because really, it... You know... I mean, you're a doctor. You've seen some shit, I'm sure. It shouldn't be that... You know... You should be able to keep your faculties, is what I'm saying.
Science Log Chief Science Officer Dr. Kine reporting. The colony's problems concern me greatly. I have no doubt they are somehow linked to the discovery of the marker, but the exact nature of that connection is still unknown. Almost 40% of the colonists are experiencing a form of dementia. The obvious symptoms are acute depression, insomnia, and hallucination. Incidents of violence and even murder also indicate extreme paranoia. Dr. Mercer has advised that I bring some of the affected on board for study. Dr. Wellen, the planet-side psychiatrist, has reported that his own analysis has been fruitless. I'm hesitant to rely on Dr. Mercer at this point, but I need his expertise. We need solutions, and we need them quickly.
Okay. Alright, so now we're going in the elevator. You know, not much to be said about it. It's an elevator. Smash Brothers? No. No, it's just a red cross. Again, or a white cross with a red background. Okay. So, yeah, I remember this part now. Well, if it was gonna move, it ain't gonna move now. Oh my. Look, a flying one. And you would actually think that this would mean something exciting. It really doesn't, though. Basically all it does is it, you know, takes dead corpses, dead bodies, and turns them into, well, these, right? Turns them into a necromorph. Fair enough, easy enough. In a less than clean fashion, I might add. Okay. As you can see, nothing quite exciting about that. It died fairly simply, and mind you, I believe the game also considers these technically as a new type of enemy. They really aren't. They're just slightly more powerful, slightly more harder to kill variants of the same shit we've seen now for 2 hours. You know, it's not necessarily a complaint. A lot of games do that. You know, they'll show you the slightly bigger or, you know, meaner, badder, more, you know, more dangerous variants of an enemy. You know, nothing too shocking about that, but I don't know. Like, it does kind of, again, it's just sort of like, okay, you know, I'll give it to you. It's a gimme. It's a gimme kind of enemy design, I guess. Safety first. Also, the game keeps kind of harping, well, not harping, but it keeps going back to that as well as an aesthetic or audio cue, as it were. Every now and then while you're going through these hallways, through these corridors, through these rooms, you'll hear like vague, very fast-paced sort of whispering. You know, it sounds vaguely like English, but you can't quite make out what's being said, etc. Kind of a horror trope in and of itself. I guess it sort of implies that maybe the necromorphs, whatever they are at least have some form of language, maybe. I mean, it would be reasonable to assume that these guys, you know, they're stripping skin off people. They're using dead bodies. I mean, clearly they have to have an understanding of of our nervous system. So from that point forward, one could then glean that if they understand our nervous system, then they could probably learn to use it, including the creative side of things, like speaking and, you know, communicating, things like that. Just, you know, a little bit of food for thought there, I guess. Kind of takes away the concept that they're completely brainless. I mean, they are pretty monstrous, and they're not very friendly, and they don't seem like they're really trying to communicate, but I believe they would have at least the ability to do so. Who knows? Maybe I'll be writing Dead Space fan fiction at some point. You never know. Exciting prospect, though, isn't it? Okay. So we're just going back through here. Nothing really has changed. Still the same horrible mess that it was. So actually, though, funnily enough, we can actually compare this room to a similar room in, of all things, Metal Gear Solid, and I think it would have... This could actually pose or beg the question for subtlety. I feel like the effectiveness of this room, by its design, yes, it is effectively, like, off-putting, yes. I mean, you've got dead bodies, carcasses, you've got gore all over the walls, I mean, shit's just everywhere. But, like, it just kind of comes off as a little excessive, right? Like, it's effective at what it's trying to tell you, that the necromorphs absolutely, positively murdered, slaughtered every living thing that was in this particular room, probably in this entire ship. And yeah, it effectively gets that across. But like, I don't know. It just, I don't, like that, I mean, it's like, you know, like, it works, but it doesn't really work the way it used to, I guess is the best way to put it. If I were like 15, this would be one thing. Like, but this, I don't know. I feel like that's a really big issue with horror games in general, actually, on that note, is that a lot of times the minute you start to consume media with a horror genre focus, the minute you start to actually notice the tropes, of which there are many different horror tropes, I suppose you could call them, but the thing is, the minute you start to identify them, the minute you start to, you know, recognize them, all of a sudden the power of these particular images start to kind of dissipate. You could make the case, in fact, and I would, if I had the time, that horror genre anything really, whether it be in a book, a film, a video game, anything really, any film form of media with a horror focus, a horror genre attachment, I feel like the longer that it persists, the longer that it keeps being brought up, the more you see of it, the more you see the things that make up horror as a genre, they start to lose their impact, and they really do lose their effectiveness. I'm not saying I'm completely devoid of the ability to be fearful or afraid of something. That's certainly not what I'm saying. But the idea of me being able to separate myself from the fact that this is a form of media and there are many, many rules to how you scare somebody in them, it's very hard for me to remove myself from that. So jump scares, things like that, disgusting, disturbing rooms and things full of imagery such as what looks like bowel movement and blood all over the floor. I mean, it's stuff like that just, I don't know. It doesn't quite have the same power as it used to. I'm not sure that it ever had power over individuals, really. I think the initial shock value is one thing, but the minute you see it once, it's like its immediate shock value was just lessened by 50%. And every time after, it gets lessened by another half, by another half, by another half. Eventually, the shock value never goes away, mind you. It's always there, but it's just every time it occurs, it's less and less valued. It's less and less effective. It's less and less this and that. Guess we're going through this door. Oh. I see, where are these enemies all the game, damn it? More enemies like that. That was relentless and effective. I see, this is precisely why I like video games, though, because see, like in a motion picture, or a book, or a piece of music, this could never occur. You can't have this odd, like, what in the hell is going on? Why is that ragdoll having a fit? Never change, ragdoll physics. Your proclivity for freaking out about doors is, well, simply unmistakably brilliant. And I can't help but smile every time I see something like that happen. Anyway, back to the main point. Let's have a look at some more minutia. We have what looks like signage from the medical office itself. Sorry, we are full. Help me, help me, help me. I'm not really understanding those little tick marks there. Me, got a big me. It's time. I've seen that a couple of times. Slave, what does that say? SW, save us maybe is what it's supposed to say. Or is it slave us? I can't quite make it out. Give them hope. Give them strength. They'll wait a little bit, or they'll last a little, or last a bit longer. We're so fucked. Hey, it's okay to be fucked. Don't open that door. No. Save us, save us, save us. See, yeah, it's just kind of your standard horror graffiti trope. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's nice to see it. Is it safe? No. Oh, Marathon Man reference. That's always nice. If you have no idea what Marathon Man is, you should give it a shot. It's got Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier. Actually, very, very good motion picture.
Somehow one of them found a way down to the captain's nest. I managed to contain it in a damaged escape pod. Lifting executive lockdown now. I found the deck logs. Whatever is happening around here, it came from the planet when they cracked it open. It spread to the colony and reached the ship. Isaac, this isn't an infection. It's some form of alien life. Shit, we've got bigger problems. The ship's engines are offline and our orbit is decaying. Get over to the engineering deck ASAP while I stay here and figure out what the problem is.
You know, I just don't give a shit about him. And again, back to my comment about him and the scientists being, as far as like the VAs go, just not being very good. I would argue he's the worst of the two. She's okay, but he's just got weird tonal shifts. It's like they took 4 different takes and somehow melded them into that little, you know, heads-up display exchange. I don't know. He's just not very good. He's not a very good voice actor. He's sort of odd. His accent, while not offensive, I'm not saying I'm offended by accents per se, but like his tonal shifts along with his general like enunciation, the way he approaches phrasings is, I don't know. He's just odd. Like he's very coming at you sideways in a way. I just don't like that. I don't like that. It's very inconsistent. It's just not. It's not good. Not a good VA. Another perfectly good example of bad VA actually in a or bad voiceover in a EA game. Mirror's Edge I thought had horrendous voice acting. There are some who would probably disagree with me on that, but I don't know. Everybody sounds lifeless, and they sound as lifeless as the environments you're running around in. Oh no, excuse me, free running around in. Jesus Christ. So okay, so we have now reached the ass end of the second chapter. Again, like I said, it opens up a little bit. It lets you kind of explore a little more, and it gives you a few more options as to how to approach certain encounters, enemy encounters, things like that. I would argue definitely that this chapter was better than the first. There's no doubt about that. Did not mean to close out of that menu. But it's still kind of suffering from the same issues. It's still, you know, come on, go this way. Okay, now do this, do that, go pick this up. Okay, now we're good. Alright, we're done, you know. Kind of, I don't know, it could, again, it could be handled better. That's just in general, like, seems like I'm going to be just repeating myself ad nauseum. Ba-da-da, it could be better, it could be better, it could have been better, could have been better, could have been handled better, this could have been handled better, you know. But I don't know. Overall, it's not a bad game. I enjoy it. It's not bad. Is it great though? I don't know about that. Would it have been considered great in reference to other games released around its same time? It was probably. I mean, it probably would have stuck out in many respects. At the very least, it doesn't come off as homogenous. It doesn't come off as very it doesn't come off as like bland or you know, generic. It does seem to have its own very specific feel, and I do like that. I love that medical deck. Love the font used there. Almost looks like RoboCop font. I like that. But yeah, so I guess we're done with this chapter. I suppose we can. Well, we can just do this. I forget where we're going. Again, it really doesn't matter. I forget. It's like I think we're heading towards the back of the ship. I think we're heading to the bridge, if I'm not mistaken, which has a really cool room in it. We'll talk about that room when we get to it. Because it is a really cool room. Very, very cool room. But on that note,
You've got 2 problems, and we're working on borrowed time here. First, there's no fuel in the engines. Second, the gravity centrifuge is offline, which means there's a couple of trillion tons of rock pulling us down. I need you to get that centrifuge operational. Refuel the main engine and fire it up so I can stabilize the ship's orbit.
actually, I take that back. I'm in the wrong. It's the next chapter I'm thinking of that has the bridge. This one's kind of neat in its own way too, I guess. But it's you know, still, it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, kind of. But on that note, it is now 5:47 where I'm at, and I have a class to attend at 6:30. So if I want to be at least halfway prepared, and definitely in the right mindset, I guess I'm just going to have to call it at this point for my stream. As far as getting back online, I probably will. Not sure when. I get off at 9. Well, I get out of class at 9-ish or 9:30-ish. I forget. It really depends on the professor's mood. Probably 9-ish. Let's just plan for 9-ish. I get out at 9-ish, and then I've got I've got a test to study for tomorrow, which I'm not really that worried about, so I don't have to put that much. I don't have to bet all my hedge all my bets on it. And then as far as I do have a media writing assignment that I got to do, but that I can sit down and do that. Plus I have all night to do that. So yeah, probably around 9:30 I'll be back, and I will probably get through, at the very least, get through chapter 3. Because this one is actually it's okay. It's got a little bit more going for it in terms of the more horror-esque aspects. But yeah, on that note, I will sign off for now, and I will be back later. So hopefully everyone's, well, whoever's been watching anyways, hopefully you've been enjoying it. So yeah.